99% of the time, vocals are the most important thing in the mix. So shaping a vocal is a very important thing to know how to do. So the first thing we'll do is pull up the vocal, and then we'll start working on EQ and compression.
I will not be ashamed.
Pull up the EQ.
Oh, we won't. How could we be
First thing I'll do is put a high pass filter on,
love,
and I'll roll that up to around 125 hertz. This gets rid of any P's. When they sing or say a P, it gets rid of that pop sound, which is also called a plosive. Let's talk about some key frequencies when dealing with vocals. We'll start in the low range and work our way up. So in the lower frequencies, you can get some warmth, but you can also get some muddiness. So we'll add some, and I'm going to take off the shelf.
I am not ashamed. I will not be ashamed.
So you can hear that this is a little muddy and a little too present.
How could we
If I take it away, now the vocal sounds very thin with no warmth or presence to it. So you'll need to find a good middle ground for your room and your situation. Now let's move to our mid-range frequencies. We'll start at 1K and boost it a little bit. And I'll make my cue a little narrower so you can really hear what each frequency is doing.
How could we be ashamed? Love, oh love, that gives us life away, away, away.
So as you can hear, around 400 hertz makes someone sound like they have a cold. So if I turn this up, if
Your love
I go a little higher,
for me.
so that's 450 hertz. And it really makes him sound like he has a cold. His nose is all stopped up. Now, sometimes people sound like this even when they're not sick. So if you take away those frequencies, it'll get rid of that really stopped up nasally sound. Now, if you go a little higher, around 800 hertz, you'll get a different kind of nasally sound. So it's still kind of nasally, kind of honky, you might say. So if you're having that problem, try taking out somewhere around 800 hertz. Now, it's really important to not take away too much mid-range in a vocal. These frequencies centered around 700 hertz are key to making the vocal stick out in a mix and stand out and be present without hurting. So if you overdo this, you'll probably have a hard time getting the vocal to sit right in the mix. So I'll center this up around 700 hertz and take out a good handful. Now you hear the vocal still sounds kind of warm, and there are high frequencies there, so you can understand what he's saying. But in the context of a mix, this would not work very well. You really need those mid-range frequencies to sit right in a mix. So now let's move up to our mid-highs. We'll add some. Go a little narrower. Now these frequencies add clarity to your vocal, but they can also be very painful. So we'll swoop around, go down to around 2K.
Your love for me, yeah, how great.
So you can hear it's very clear, but if this was loud, it would really be painful. Now, if you take too much away, they sound really dark, and they kind of sound nasally because the only thing left is the mid-range frequencies, which sound nasally by themselves. So, again, don't take away too much, but you know what you're getting into there. So if it's hurting a little bit, you might try taking away some of this range and maybe take your cue a little wider, and that'll take the edge off of the vocal. Alright, so now the high frequencies. The high frequencies add air to a vocal. Kind of get the breathy sound, especially in a softer song. And especially if a girl's singing, you can really get that airy, breathy sound in a vocal with high frequencies. Now, High frequencies can also be dangerous. You get a lot of sibilance, which is the S sound that you make when you speak or sing an S. And this can, of course, be painful. You'll also get a lot of cymbals if you have a live drum kit on stage. So we'll take some of this, add it.
That gives us life away, away, away.
So you can hear it's a nice airy sound. So we'll take this away, and you'll hear the vocal get very dark. So there's still some clarity there, but they sound a little more distant now.
No, I am not ashamed. I will not be ashamed.
So when EQing a vocal, you're really trying to find a nice balance between all the frequencies. Too much of the lower frequencies, around 150 to 200 hertz, and you get muddy, but not enough, and the vocal sounds thin. If you move on up to around 700 hertz, these frequencies are very important for the vocal to sit right in the mix and to stick out without being painful. But too much of that, and they start to sound a little nasally and a little honky. If you move up from there to around 2, 3, or 4K, you get some really nice clarity, but these frequencies can be very painful. So if you're looking for something to stick out in the mix, you can add these, but I would try adding around 700 first because it's a lot less painful. And then you have your high frequencies. If you're having problems with the S sound or the sibilance, you can try taking some of these away, but if you overdo it, the vocal starts to sound distant and dark.